Episode number 237.
But if you work in HR or IT or engineering, you better have one good sales story
Right.
and one
Something-
good marketing story and one good recruiting story.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, you really don't know what your company's doing and how they do it, right? You've got to every leader ought to be able to tell one of these stories. And if you
Gotcha.
work in that discipline, you probably need a lot more.
Welcome to the Be Real Show with Travis Too Tall and Huff, where we talk about life, dreams, social media, and business.
Well, hello and welcome to the Be Real Show with Travis Too Tall and Huff. Folks, I am fired up today. It is Friday. And most importantly, I'm pumped for you guys because after this show, I think you're going to want to tell your story. And I think you're going to want to tell it in a big way. So I'm so excited because we're bringing you our featured guest today, Paul Smith. Paul, are you ready to be real?
I am, Travis.
Let's
do it.
My band's bringing the fuego, as we say over here. Paul is a business storytelling coach, folks, an author, a keynote speaker. I mean, if you go to his website, he's been on PR News, Wall Street Journal, Business Daily. He's been out there and everywhere, as well as he, with his books, has done very well on Amazon and the places that you can get books these days. As we know, there's so many places. The one that I saw is the 10 stories that great leaders tell. I love that title because I think it's really, gives us an affirmation of what the book is going to be about and getting through that. So pleasure to have you on the show today, Paul. Like I ask all the guests, how's your day going?
That's good so far. This is my third interview today. So,
there we go. There we go,
try
man.
and keep the energy level up for you.
I like your style, baby. I like your style, Paul. That's the way to do it. Batch those interviews, baby. Well, it's just a pleasure having you on the show. We were talking a little bit prior to the show. So, Paul, you also have a lot of experience before you started your business, which we're going to definitely talk about. But Procter & Gamble, a huge company, unbelievable business lines, tons of products and different things and advertising. I always loved looking at the advertising dollars, and Procter & Gamble was always at the top of the advertisers in the world globally because they have so many different things going on. But tell me about your experience at Procter & Gamble, because that probably led into your, experience as being a business storytelling and being able to help people tell their story.
Yeah, so my corporate career was pretty typical. I mean, I spent 20 years there. I started out of undergrad as a consultant for what's now Accenture for a couple of years, and then went back to business school to get an MBA. And P&G hired me from there. And like I said, I spent 20 years there. About the first 7 or 8 years in finance and accounting type jobs. The last 12 or so years in consumer and communications research. Gotcha. But as I'd mentioned to you earlier, they moved me all over. I was out in California there where you are. I've been up in Seattle, down in Arkansas on our Walmart sales team.
Wow. A
lot of the time, though, in Cincinnati, because that's where the world headquarters is, and all roads lead to the mothership, if you know what I mean. But in various levels of management. So like my last job there, I was the director of consumer and communications research for our paper businesses, which is like Charmin bath tissue and Bounty paper towels and Puffs facial tissue. So about a $6 billion global business unit that I was in charge of consumer research for.
Wow. And so what kind of things would you research at that point? I'm sure now they're making tons of money because obviously Charmin and all this stuff. I mean, they're just printing this paper, baby.
Yeah, well, so you'll get a grin out of this, but I mean, if you're in charge of research for Charmin and Bounty, and Puffs, you're literally in charge of researching how people blow their noses and wipe their butts. So,
right.
Somebody's got to do that, I guess, right?
Very interesting. Yeah, we all do it. So let's just be real, folks. If you don't do it, then you're not alive.
Yeah, you can't get any more real than wiping your butt, right?
Absolutely, man. It's one of the most real things and one of the biggest things we have to be grateful for too, folks, because a lot of times we get caught up in third world problems when we got first world, I always like me and my wife say joke first world problems, because if you can flush a toilet, that's a blessing.
Yes,
right now,
it is.
In this world. And to be able to do that and then get some fresh water to wash your hands, blessing.
Exactly.
So just remember that, folks, always, especially during these times right now, as we're going through, everything's going through a little something different, Paul, right? Yeah. Everyone's experiencing this pandemic and crisis a little differently. And so,
well, and as we all found out recently, having toilet paper to wipe with, that's something that's good to have. And when you don't have it, you don't have it.
It showed it like the new 2020 Flex was like Rolexes. Who cares about those? It showed a thing of toilet paper. You know what I mean? Because it's like
I got my Charmin.
we all realize we don't need an extra pair of Nikes. You know, we need the essentials.
Exactly.
And we're probably figuring that out. I think that's a good thing. There's a lot of good things that are going to possibly come from this all. You know what I mean?
I hope so.
Healthier, cleaner, more connected to our families, realizing that we don't need to consume as much shit, you know, realizing that, hey, we got a lot of shit in our house that we can use, you know, we don't need to buy anything more because we haven't been able to buy anything more. So, oh shit, I realized I didn't even have this. I haven't even unwrapped this game. Let's play this game I haven't even unwrapped. And you start probably realizing all the stuff you do have, you know, and so plus obviously other many things maybe that come from and some scary things that come from it. Businesses are going to get wiped out and people are losing jobs and unfortunately a lot of people are stressed about money right now, you know. But that gets me into your story. So after 20 years in the business corporate world, you decided now's the time. I'm going to start beyond just, working for the man, if you want to call it, but be able to tell my story, be able to help people scale it by obviously writing books and be able to speak on big stages where you can impact a lot of people and businesses in their brands. And you got into starting with Lead with a Story. You developed a business where you're talking about storytelling. So tell us about that. What gave you the epiphany for businesses to now need to really tell their story?
Yeah, well, I guess it's just, it finally dawned on me after the first 15 years or so of working in the business world that storytelling was an important skill set to have if you wanted to be effective as a leader. And I probably just noticed that with the leaders that I admired the most, that I wanted to work for and wanted to kind of be like when I grew up in the company. But that frustrated me because, they didn't teach me that in business school. They didn't teach me that at Accenture. They didn't teach me that when I came to P&G. It was one of those skill sets that it became clear it was important, but there was no class that you took to learn it. So I kind of set out on my own little personal learning journey. I started reading all the books I could find on it. I started interviewing leaders that I thought were good at it. And after a while, I still didn't really know how to do it very well. So it ended up becoming an idea for a book instead of just my own little selfish learning journey, because I realized a lot of other people wanted to know it as well. So it didn't start out that way, but that's definitely the way it ended up.
Did you struggle as an author writing your first book when you decided to make and write your first book? Was it a challenge for you?
Oh yeah.
What was the biggest challenge? Writer's block, if you want to call it that. I mean, the things.
Well, not for me. I imagine people that write lots of books run into writer's block. If you're Stephen King and you're writing your 70th book, right? But if you're writing your first book, you got lots of words, like you got lots of stuff to say. Yeah. The challenge on your first book is getting it published, like getting a publisher to, finding an agent, getting a publisher to agree to it, getting it done. Yeah. So lots of other challenges that you run into before writer's block ever, I've written 5 books now, and I don't think I've ever really run into writer's block, but when I get to number 70 or 80 or 100, like Stephen King, ask me that question again.
So writer's block really happens, folks, when you have no ideas left. You're like written all your damn ideas.
That's my guess. I don't know. I haven't written enough books to have it. So.
Right. But I also think, in my opinion, I think a lot of people think writer's block as they are afraid to tackle their very first book. And they're afraid because they're afraid to put themselves out there. They obviously can self-publish on Amazon or all these places, but they're just afraid. And they say, you know what, Paul, I don't know what to do. I got all these great ideas, but I don't know what to do with them. And that I've heard that all the time. I've heard that quite often from people at different levels. You know what I mean? And so what would you say got you over that, hurdle of saying, I got to just do this, man. Like, let's write it.
So a couple of things, and both were important. So the first one is just learning how the process worked. How do you go about finding an agent? Do you need an agent? How do you go about finding a publisher? How do you write a book proposal? Like the nuts and bolts of how do you get it done? That was my first thing. And I literally read a couple of books on that topic, how to get published for dummies or something, but the second thing was more the fear that you mentioned.
Yes.
So that was a big barrier for me. And I'll tell you, the way I got over that was actually my dad helped me with that.
Really?
So my dad was, this would have been 7 years ago, 8 years ago. My dad was 80 years old.
Wow.
I was 45.
Wow.
Trying to make a decision. Am I going to quit my job and go do this, take the big corporate leap or not?
Right.
And so I wrote him a letter and asked him, give me some advice, dear old dad. Right. I'm kind of stuck here. Should I? And I thought he would do what most dads would do. He's either going to do two things, right? He's either going to say, oh, go for it, son. I got faith in you. I know you can believe it. Like he could be my cheerleader. Or he would be the practical dad and say, you know what? Why don't you just keep your nose to the grindstone for another 5 or 10 years and retire and get your retirement benefits and then go take all this risk. You got 2 kids to put through college and,
Right.
that's dangerous, right? So I was expecting one of those two responses. And Travis, he didn't tell me either of those things.
Really?
All he did was tell me a story about himself when he was 5 years old that I'd never heard before. And neither had my siblings. And he said, when I was 5 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up. He said, I wanted to be a singer, like Frank Sinatra or Tony Bennett or Sammy Davis Jr., right? He's 80, right?
Right.
So he said, and I knew that for sure the first day of the first grade because the teacher asked all of us if any of us had any special talent, like, music or dancing or magic tricks or something. And he said, I raised my hand and I said, I can sing. Despite the fact that he'd never sung in front of anybody except his mom in the kitchen, right?
Wow.
Well, what do you think the teacher asked him to do?
Sing.
Exactly. Well, okay, Bobby, we'll stand up and sing us a song then.
Let's do it, baby.
So little 5-year-old Bobby Smith stood up and he belted out his favorite song there, a cappella, right there in front of the whole class. And he said, the students and the teacher stood up and they applauded me.
Wow.
I got a standing ovation. He said, he said, I nailed it, right? I got all the words right and everything. He said, I got a standing ovation my first time to ever sing in front of an audience.
Wow.
He went on to say, but that turned out not just to be the first time I ever sang in front of an audience.
Really?
It turned out to be the last time I ever sang in front of an audience. He said, the truth is, son, I never had the guts to go through with it. And he said, there's not a month that goes by in the last 75 years that I have not thought about and regretted that decision. So he finishes this letter to me. He says, I'd love to see you achieve your dream, but that doesn't mean in your lifetime, son. That means in mine.
Wow.
And I just thought, oh man, TikTok, right? The guy's 80. Like he's telling me not to wait till I'm 80 because, he wants to see it, right?
Right.
So literally, Travis, 2 days later, I walk into my boss's office and I resigned from my 20-year career to go do this. And that is exactly the kick in the pants that I needed at that point. Because what I learned from that was, even if I'm not doing it for my own benefit, there's probably somebody else in my life who loves me, who wants to see me achieve my dreams as much as I do. Right. So if I'm not going to be brave enough to do it for me, be brave enough to do it for them so they can 2 people will be, made happy from this. Right. So
100%. That's amazing.
What I think.
That's amazing. And we all have sons, daughters, or we have, spouses. We all have parents. We all have friends. We all have coworkers possibly, or employees, team members. And you don't know how you're impacting these people's lives.
Right.
And so it's such a great story. So then tell me into how businesses can tell their story better, because I've been talking about that more and more right now, especially using social media, using the stories feature of social media where you can talk about your story, why you love serving your customers, who they are, what you're doing to get back, in business, and then the struggles too. And also, I think the last thing is I love being funny. I think that's a big part of personally for social, because I think people connect to that. And right now, we all kind of need a little chuckle here and there, because it's everyone's so amped up, and a little bit more, everyone's a little bit more intense right now.
Yeah. Well, so you just touched on what I think the most important question is, which is what story should they tell? So when you say, how can companies tell their story? Well, first you got to decide which story you want to tell, because companies don't just have one story, or they shouldn't just have one story. They should have dozens of stories that they tell at the right moment for the right purpose. So you first got to figure out what stories you need. And that was the whole purpose behind my last book, the 10 Stories Great Leaders Tell.
Yes.
It's trying to help you focus. Like instead of the 150 stories you probably need to be telling, which is just overwhelming, well, where should I start? What are the most important stories? And so that's what these 10 stories are, is these are the most important stories for any company to start with. So you want me to just cheat and give you the list there? So
yes, let's do it. Let's give the hack list, folks, so we can give you a reason to get the book, because I was checking it out on Amazon earlier.
All right. So here are the first 4, because they kind of go together, because they're about setting the direction for the organization. So that's where we came from. So that's your founding story.
Gotcha.
Why we can't stay there. So that's a case for change story. Where we're going, which is a vision story, and how we're going to get there, which is a strategy story. So strategy is about how you're going to get from where you are now to where you want to be. So imagine you can tell those 4 stories. You can easily articulate where we came from, why we can't stay there, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So those are the first four. So
Four.
the next four kind of go together as well, but they're more about who we are as an organization. So that's what we believe. So that's a corporate values story. Who we serve. So that's a customer story, a story about the customer so you can understand, everybody can understand who we're really working for. Number 7 is what we do for our customers. So that's a classical sales story or customer success story. And then number 8 is how we're different from our competitors. So I call that a marketing story just because marketing is typically about differentiating you from your competitors. So you can imagine if you can tell those 4 stories, you can easily articulate who we are, who we work for, what we do for them, and how we're different than our competitors, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So if you're doing the math, I think we got 2 more, right? So number 9 and 10.
Number 9, 10.
9 and 10 go together as well, but they're more personal about you, the leader, okay? So number 9 is why I lead the way I do. So that's a personal leadership philosophy story. Number 10 is why you should want to work here. You, the person you're talking to, right? Not you, Travis, but whoever you're talking to. So, and those are important because every leader's job is bringing in talented people and having them stay and follow the leadership. So that's not just the job of HR or the recruiting department. And, that marketing story is not just for the marketing department, and that sales story is not just for the sales department. I mean, if you work in sales, you better have lots of sales stories. Yes. But if you work in HR or IT or engineering, you better have one good sales story, and one good marketing story, and one good recruiting story. Gotcha. Otherwise, you really don't know what your company's doing and how they do it, right? You've got to, every leader ought to be able to tell one of these stories. Gotcha. And if you work in that discipline, you probably need a lot more.
Right. So if you're in that discipline, you need to be telling lots of these stories. But if you are in another cross discipline and a different support story, you need to have some other story that it's not in your industry. It's not talking about IT, but it's like, oh, well, guess what? We fixed Helen's computer using this, and this solution that we have over here, and be able to tell a story about the sales side of the business or the creative side of the business or other sides that you do not necessarily deal with on a daily basis,
Exactly.
At least know one, like you said. It's just fascinating. I think these are just great bullet points, folks, that you can literally go through all 10 of these and on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, hit these over the head with short videos, telling why, or taking long form videos or writing long blog posts, or, there's just unlimited ways you can really address these. How would you say is your favorite way to address these for a business?
Yeah, so I use all of those, but my favorite is just a face-to-face conversation,
gotcha,
you and I are having now, even though it's over Zoom or whatever.
Yes.
But and that I think is the most typical way that most leaders will share stories like this, and it's usually in a group of a lot of people. There may be 30 people in a conference room or 500 people in a in the conference at the end of your meeting or something.
Yes.
And then also in writing, like in emails and on your company website. Gotcha. Some leaders do, like you said, make a video and they'll post that video and send it out to all the employees. So depending on how high of a leader you are and how big of an organization, you might have to use those more indirect methods. But if you're a department manager who's got 12 people in her department, you probably don't need to be making videos and post them on the internet. You just need to talk to people at your staff meeting, right?
Right.
And that's where most of the storytelling happens, is in those smaller, more personal kind of situations, I think.
It's like marketing within the staff. It's like intra-marketing instead of necessary. It's like everyone needs to know the story in general on the team, so that if someone asks about, hey, tell me about, something about customer service. Hey, you know what? No problem. We can have that. No problem for you. This is this. We've had that same thing happen here. This person did this, and this, even though they're not necessarily usually dealing with that. And so I think it's a really good point. Fascinating. Are you ready, my man? We're about now to take you into our top 10.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Let's go. Apple or Android?
Okay. Apple for me.
Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
Instagram or Facebook?
Facebook.
Chicken or steak?
Steak.
Do you have a favorite cut of steak?
No, I like them all, man. I'm a meat eater.
I love it, man. Can't go wrong with a good steak. There's nothing wrong with that right now.
Yep.
A laptop or a smartphone?
Laptop.
Spotify or Pandora?
Okay, can I say neither?
Of course.
Unfortunately, I'm too old to appreciate either of those, but my kids use Spotify.
Yep. because they're getting lots more podcasts now. Joe Rogan's now signing $100 million exclusive contracts with Spotify. Yep.
Wow.
To exclude all his content's going to go exclusively on Spotify. He's going to remove all his videos and stuff from, or all his future videos.
All off of YouTube and everything? Holy cow.
It's going to go all exclusive on the Spotify app. They're going to have a whole video. They're going to now launch into video with his and as a partner. So they're, Google should be worried because they are going to possibly start going and wanting artists to put their videos on instead of putting the artist video on YouTube. You might want to actually put it into Spotify. You know what I mean? And so, yes, exactly. So, it's fascinating. Spotify is a very powerful company, obviously now, and publicly traded, folks. If you want to buy some stocks, so movies or video games?
Movies.
Reading books or listening to books?
Reading books.
Nice. Stocks or real estate?
Stocks,
baby. Got a good stock right now to get people through this pandemic?
No, I only buy index funds. So
okay, good.
A little bit too risk averse for the buying individual stocks.
Well, that's good. Yeah. Do you do like an S&P 500? Do you do a total world, or do you focus just on the United States companies?
No, I have I have a few Vanguard funds that are pretty diversified across all those things you just said.
Smart. Yeah. They got a total world funds. They got a lot of ones where you can kind of cover everything. And that's the way to go, folks, for most investors is not to pick an individual company.
Yeah.
Because you might end up picking the wrong one.
Exactly. And I don't have time to keep up with all that. So
absolutely. Yeah. You got to buy and sell and all this stuff. It is a much. Oceans or lakes? Oceans, baby. I like it.
Like you out there in California, you got them all.
Beautiful oceans out here, man. Beautiful. We just got escaped from our shelter in place and went to Pismo Beach because we were sheltered in place. We're not supposed to go anywhere. Yeah. Me and my wife said, we're getting out of here. We're going to go for a trip somewhere. We went to Pismo Beach. It was beautiful. Tell me this, my man. When you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you're getting yourself ready for the day. Why do you love being you? Mr. Paul Smith.
I love being me. I'm an incredibly fortunate guy. I got a lovely wife and 2 kids and a career I absolutely love. And, I've achieved a lot more of my dreams than I'm pretty sure most people have had a chance to. And, I just don't have a lot of regrets. I mean,
that's amazing, dude.
I'm really fortunate. So.
And I know the business is going to continue to grow too, because more and more people are going to want to learn how to tell their story. And I think to get us through this, you're going to have to tell your story because that's what's going to separate you from the competition and price and this and that. You got to tell the story. Your story about your dad connected me 100% to you even more. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I'm a true believer of that, folks. Do you every day. You got to do your dreams. You don't have to do them 100% of the day, but at least do them at least 1 hour a week.
Yeah.
If you want to be an artist, if you want to be a musician, if you want to be a coder, at least practice on it. You're not going to know unless you try. And if you get good, maybe you spend a little more time. And maybe if you make some money, then you spend more time on it, And so, but don't be afraid to go. That's the thing.
Yeah. In fact, since you mentioned that, that's exactly what I did for my first book, the 1 hour a day. So it took me 2.5 years to get that first book from concept to being on the shelf.
Got you. Wow.
And the time I dedicated was 1 hour a day during the week.
It's amazing.
And 5 hours on the weekend. Because I kept my full-time job. I still was doing my full-time corporate day job the whole time.
Wow.
1 hour a day during the week, 5 hours on the weekend for 2 years. And then there was 6 months of what the publishers do and stuff.
Right.
That's what it took to achieve that first dream. And once that book came out, that was my ticket to another book and leave and follow my dream. But yeah, I was not brave enough to say, you know what, I'm going to quit my job and then I'm going to go write the book.
Right.
I'm just less risk averse more risk averse than that.
And I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I think most of us need to be like that. You need to not necessarily just run exactly for the dream. You chase the dream 1 hour a day, 1 hour a week, 1 hour a month, but put in the work because it ain't going to happen if you don't want to have regret. That's the one thing that most people as they get older do. Even I know myself as being a 38-year-old man, there's certain things you regret, certain things thank God I made it through these certain things. And then certain things like, God, I should have probably just avoided that. But And then a lot of times you say, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done this. I wish I'd have stepped up and done this, and you can't go back. And so I always live that way now, folks. Every day, this is your shot, shoot the stars, baby. I love that. And then also, do you think you'll ever retire?
I'm not even sure what that means anymore.
It's different these days, huh?
Because I mean, I can write books from home and,
Right.
and now, do my speaking engagements from.
I say we're all
home,
living
so-
a semi-retirements, but we're all working too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of different. You're right. I mean,
Well, maybe if nobody, when nobody's interested in reading what I write or listening to what I say, then I guess I'll be retired.
right. You're right for yourself. You're right for yourself or something.
Maybe.
But no, I think you're absolutely right. I think retirement has changed. The word too is it's taboo, man, because they say, when people retire, their mind goes off to the pastures.
Right.
And
Well, so my dad thinks I'm already retired.
Yeah, right,
Because
right.
I don't get up and go to the office from 9 to 5 and come home and
yes,
as far as he's concerned, I am retired, and he's kind of right. I mean,
it's true.
I don't wake up to an alarm clock. I do whatever I want to do every day. I mean, I'm kind of, from that standpoint. Now I work a lot,
Right.
and I spend a lot of time researching and writing, and I'm with my clients, but it's not the same as the old corporate life.
Absolutely.
In fact, the one thing that I think in some ways I retired when I was younger than you. So when I was in my mid 30s, I made one decision that it made a bigger difference than almost anything else. And people are really surprised when I tell them this. I started asking people who were either retired or were about to retire, what are you looking forward to most about being retired? And almost all of them said the same thing. They said, not having to wake up with the alarm clock at 6 a.m. and hitting the snooze, because it's the worst time of everybody's day. You're groggy and you hate getting out of bed and you hit the snooze 3 or 4 times and you're angry and you're bitter until you get 3 cups of coffee in you. It's just getting out of bed too early is the worst part of everybody's day.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'm 34, 35 years old at the time. How can I achieve that without waiting for 30 years before I can achieve it? And it occurred to me, well, I guess I could. I just need to go to bed a little earlier. So I went to bed 30 minutes earlier and I still had to hit the snooze button. I went to bed 30 minutes earlier than that. And so I found out that 10 o'clock at night was when I had to go to bed in order to get up at 6 a.m. without needing an alarm clock.
And feeling good and feeling rested.
And I haven't used an alarm clock in 20 years.
Wow.
I wake up at the right time. And completely rested. I don't drink coffee when I get up. I'm awake.
Right.
And it's amazing. And that was an epiphany that it just changed my life for the better.
And you designed that too, because you realized what time you needed to go to sleep, folks.
Yeah, and it's not hard to figure out, man. If you have to have an alarm clock, you are not getting enough sleep at night.
Right.
By definition, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So keep going to bed earlier until you no longer need the alarm clock, and then you're done. That's your bedtime from now on.
Right. I think you hit it on the head. 10 o'clock's a good time for most people, I think. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's earlier around there, but I think that's a good scientifically. If you have to wake up at 6, that's 8 hours, 7-8 hours if you go to sleep, a little tossing and turning here and there or whatever. But fascinating. I love that. And also about retirement, folks, because truly realize this. We are in a world now. We might live to 130. I was reading David Sinclair's lifespan book. We might live to 130, 150. My daughter's average life expectancy is 100 for the kids coming into the world right now. Is 100 for the new kids coming into the world right now. And my daughter's got 700 million stem cells banked. So who knows how they use that? They can, hopefully they use it for T-Huff too. But the point is, who knows? So that's what they're saying right now. Obviously in the future, who knows if you really want to live till you're 120. So but for people who quit at 60 and then you're like, oh shit, you're going to live 60 more years.
Halfway done.
And I think there's something to designing your life where you live. Like you said, you're financially free at this point, possibly. You're also, your timeline is created by you, folks. That's the best part about being an entrepreneur. You wake up and work when you want, or you design your life by your life. You go to sleep when you want. You wake up when you want. And then lastly, the most important thing is that you can keep on growing from all the knowledge you have, and you can write even another book that's even better than all the last 5 books, And so as you build and grow, that's the best thing about creating content and learning is that you just get better. I think that's so getting into that, a couple last questions for you, sir. Do you have a skill you're trying to master right now? Is there something through the pandemic or through this whole thing you're trying to learn or master that you said, oh shit, wow, this is very interesting. I'm now doing this, or, something different that you didn't normally have to do or get used to.
Yeah. I'm actually trying to learn sign languge.
Nice. Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
And the reason is because my last book actually is a biography of a deaf man. And so, I found myself, we went on a book tour right before this whole COVID pandemic happened. And so I found myself spending a lot of time with him, and obviously it helps if you know sign language.
Yes.
And that's hard. I mean, it's just like
hard.
learning any other language. And I'll admit I've not been doing very, very good at it, but I'm trying.
But you're trying, man. That's all that matters too. You just put in a little bit of work, folks. That's all life is. It's a continual growing. I love Charlie Munger's quote. He's like 93 years old, says, "A life well lived is a life with learning, with continual learning." And you never know it all. You never have all the answers in this life. You just got to know that there's another answer around the corner, and you can find it. You read a book or listen to a podcast or watch an interview, and you never know how sometimes it hits you. Just listening to your friends and family. You just never know how these things are going to get to you, folks. Last couple questions here for you, my man. If you could sit down for a lovely steak dinner with anyone in the world, who would it be?
Oh, anyone in the world. Wow.
Anyone.
Wow. That's a big list. Well, and maybe this sounds self-serving, but the deaf man I just mentioned, Kenny Tedford. So I love the man, and he lives in Tennessee, and I live in Ohio. And because he's deaf, it's hard for us we can't talk on the phone.
Gotcha.
It's hard for him to read my lips over Zoom if we don't have a good connection. So I would like to spend more time with him. That's amazing. In fact, that's the name of the book is 4 Days with Kenny Tedford.
That's amazing.
We got to spend 4 days together at my house. And it was just a lovely experience. And I'd like to have that more often, easier. So love to have dinner with Kenny.
Find a way. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Maybe we can find a way to make that happen. Or just, put that energy out there. Maybe there's technology solutions for people that have these issues of communication that we can figure out technology ways to better communicate with each other, with people that are in the same situation. There's got to be 1 million people at least on this earth that are dealing with the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a business right there, folks. If you guys want to figure it out, there's a business. Go find some developers. If you could give our listeners one last real talk thought, what would that be?
I guess I would say since we're talking about storytelling, think of storytelling like any other skill set that you need in work and in life. And that is something that it would behoove you to spend some time learning, as opposed to thinking of it as some people are just born with the ability to tell good stories and some people aren't. And I'm not one of them, so I'll never be good at it. Right. It's just not true. It's like any it's an art form. It's just like, playing the violin or being a painter or whatever. If you're not naturally gifted at that, fine. But go take lessons from somebody who is. Read a book. Watch some YouTube videos. Right. You can learn how to do this. It's not that hard.
Right. It's not rocket science, folks. And if you go with your gut, it's your story. Just remember that, folks. No one can take away your story. I have a very unique story that a lot of people haven't had. No one can replicate my story. Paul has the same story. You know what I mean? It's just different challenges, different obstacles, people that have passed, people that have come in your life. We all have different stories. So go with your gut. Whenever you're trying to tell your story, folks, just go with your gut. That's one of my favorite things to go with. And that what your intuition is what it is. It's what you should be putting on paper. It's what you should be talking about. I love all the points that you gave us, the 10 points. I got a whole bullet point here. I hope you guys have been taking notes. If not, go back and listen to that because he gave us the 10 greatest things to talk about with our stories. Paul, I just want to thank you so much for your time today, my man. Where is the best place for people to find more about you or the business?
Yeah, probably my website's the easiest, which is leadwithastory.com. They can find out all my books and training courses and stuff like that's all there.
Well, folks, we'll definitely put that in the show notes. Folks, I just want to say first, Paul, the business is going to continue to expand, continue to grow. I wish you many prosperous years. I love your energy of learning to do sign language. And I just know we didn't talk about it, but I can just tell you're a great dad and a great husband too, which we could even guide into more because I'm sure that's even a difficult thing to do during this pandemic where everyone's kind of on top of each other. But pleasure to have you on the show today, my man. I wish you continued and more success with the books. Looking forward to the 4 days. That's a new book coming soon?
It's already out. 4 days with Kenny Tedford.
Okay, we got to put that in the show notes too. We'll definitely put that in the show notes as well. Folks, you've been hanging out with Paul Smith and Travis Too Tall and Huff. We want to thank you again for your time today, and let's keep being real. What another epic episode. And if you enjoyed the episode today, can you please do me a favor and subscribe to our podcast, The Be Real Show, on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. And also take a little time today, if you don't mind, and give your boy T Huff a review. I would really super appreciate it. And thank you so much for listening today. We're all going through a lot right now. And Real Time Outsource, my business, is giving back to local and small businesses. Through our social media services and campaigns, we are actually helping small businesses get more exposure during these times, and also when we get through these times. At the end of the day, we don't know how long this is all going to last, but most importantly, you got to think about your business right now and take it seriously. So come check us out at realtimeoutsource.com, and we would love for you to qualify and get the process started where we can take a look at your business and see if we can qualify you for some of our services at little to no cost for most of the businesses. And some businesses, you're going to have to pay, but that's just part of life, right? But most importantly, is that I think this is the time, folks, that you can actually help thrive in your business. And so I would love to help you personally with our team. We're all going through a tough time right now. So take advantage of us. realtimeoutsource.com. Check us out. And we would love to do some business with you and help you with your social and digital media in 2020 and beyond.